morning. My name is Mike Russell, manager of our technical integrations team here at Total Expert. And today I'm going to be walking you through a new iteration of our Encompass Next Gen feature where you can develop multiple connections to Total Expert. So what this will allow you to do is potentially send Encompass data to Total Expert with different field mappings. You're able to send it to potentially different instances of Total Expert, and gives you some more flexibility and control around how data comes into Total Expert and where it goes and how it comes over. So we'll go ahead and dive right on into the demo. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we'll start inside of Encompass. So a couple things that you need to do in order to really take advantage of this feature is one, we need to know what field in Encompass we want to look at when determining how and when to send data over to how and where to send data over to Total Expert. So in my test instance here, I've done this with a custom field. So the field must be a drop-down field. So I'll show you what I've created here inside of Encompass on my instance. So I'll go into custom fields. And I've created a custom field called Total Expert Multi-Connection. So I've developed a field and I've got two options here. That's this one here. This one. So I've got two options here, employee loans and other loans. So basically what I'm trying to do here is set up a multi-connection that says, hey, if it's an employee loan, send it this way. If it's any other loan, send it another way. And specifically, we're going on owner. So I've got my field here. It's a drop down and I've got my options here. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing you need to have is a field that is a drop down that has options to determine how that data is going to come over. So then what you do is you navigate to KM Tools and you come into the Total Expert utility. And then here you'll have a new interface. So historically you would have been taken straight to the configuration screen. You now have an option to set up a connection. So if you are going to be using multiple connections, first you need to identify what field Total Expert needs to look at when determining how to come over. So I've got that field here. Again, the only fields that are going to be available are drop-down fields. And I selected that field that I have set up. That's a custom field. Once you have that set up, you can move forward with your configuration like you had. You'll be able to add, edit, or delete. So if you select add, it'll take you to the configuration screen that you're used to. I've already got a couple connections set up. So let's go into my all other loans. So inside of all other loans, I've gone and said, okay, here is my TE connection ID. I want to use the value all other loans, and I want them to be in the following loan folders. So you can see I have these employee loans deselected. Well, what I'm trying to do is for all other loans, I want them to be sent over to Total Expert with the LO ID and Encompass. So under related users, I've come in here and said, I want the owner details to go off of external ID and the LO ID from Encompass, just like we typically have done in the past. Okay, so that's already set up. Now let's go and view the employee loans. So for employee loans, I want them all to come into a very specific owner. So what I've done is I've said, okay, if the connection ID is employee loans and it is in one of these two folders, I want the owner to go off of email address, and I want it to go off this value of just this custom field that I created. Okay, so you can set up a business rule to say, hey, is it an employee loan? Go and create a custom field value of email address, what have you. Right. So that's what I've done here. Another thing that is important is we've allowed you to name your connection. So as you navigate through the other configuration screens, you can see and kind of know what connection you're working with here. Okay. One other thing is if you go in and create a new connection and you try to move forward without setting up a connection ID, it will prompt you to tell you, hey, you haven't set up everything, right? So if you have more than one connection, you will be prompted to make sure you set up the appropriate connection ID in the interface. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward here with my test. So for all other loans, I want them just to come over with the LOID. For employee loans, I want them to come into a very specific user in Total Expert. And that user that I want them to come in as is the users with the email address of this marketing email. So let's go and test it out. I've got a couple loans here that I've already created. I've got this other, and then I've got employee. So let's look at other first. So I've got John other. Everything is looking good there. And then I'm going to go into the Total Expert. Just this is where I put the field. So I'm going to leave the loan owner here blank. This is that custom field I had set up, but I don't need that because it's going off the LOID. So let's go ahead and I've already set this one up to go to the all other loans connection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. And you're going to see that it's going to successfully come over. And in the log, you will see it went off the owner of the external ID and the LOID I have set up inside of Encompass and ultimately in Total Expert. So it came into this user here. So if we go ahead and log into this user, first thing you're going to see is we've got a new contact, and then you're going to be able to come into loans. And you can see that I have this loan with the borrower of John Other, and all that information came over appropriately. Okay. Let's navigate over to my employee loan now. So here's my employee loan. All right. So I'm going to show you a failure first, just so you can see, how it would how that would potentially look. So go to the same thing, go to Total Expert Integration. I must have mistakenly already saved this at one point. So again, we're going to go to employee loans. Now let's first try to save this without a value here. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And then here you're actually going to see, I need to include enable data sync. So you're actually going to see a failure because the did not supply information to identify the user. That's because I didn't have a value here. Okay. I told the connection, if it's in this employee loan connection ID, to go off the value for the owner here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to my super admin user, and I'm going to go grab that email address of the user that I actually want it to go to. So users. I'm going to copy this email address, and now I'm going to drop that in here. Now we're going to try again. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And now we have a success. And then when you see in the body of the request, you can see that the owner is actually passed as an email with that value that I have configured in that field. If I were to try to do this to all other loans, it would not look at this. It would take the external ID and the LOID that I've configured. So let's go now log in as this marketing admin user. You'll see in the dashboard right away that we now have a new contact, a couple new contacts. And then when we go into loans, you will now see the loan with that John employee user, because that's where we told it that we wanted it to go. So that's the multi-connection support. Again, not only can you do something like that where you can manipulate owners or those types of things, but suppose you do want it to go to a different instance of Total Expert, you would just need different API credentials. Suppose you want the field mapping to come over slightly different, you are able to do those types of things. Suppose the loan programs you want to show up different. All of those things are going to be able to be done directly inside of here. You would just need to set up multiple connections here to determine how you want the data to come over to Total Expert and where you'd like it to go. So that's the Encompass multi-connection support. If you have any questions or concerns, certainly reach out to your CSM, your TAM, or myself, and I'll be happy to chat with you about it. Thanks.